So we're going to start with preheat your oven to 350. We're going to line a large baking sheet with tin foil like this, which I've done. And we're going to start with garlic and onions, but what I do, it's a little bit different, is I saute the garlic and onions first because it brings a lot of flavor. This is a fantastic meatloaf. So I have a half cup of chopped onion, 1 clove of garlic right here, and I also have a 1/4 teaspoon of thyme, dried thyme leaves. And when you saute herbs like that, it brings out flavors even more. So, all right, about a teaspoon of olive oil into a small pan like this. A half cup of onion in here. And that 1 clove of garlic that I put through the garlic press. And that 1/4 teaspoon of dried thyme leaves also goes in here. Okay? So we're going to saute this for about 5 minutes until it's like even a little bit brown, because this, I mean, if you put this in raw, it just won't be the same. You've got to saute it and cook it till it's nice and brown. And by the way, this meatloaf was in my cookbook, this recipe. People said it was the best meatloaf they've ever had. It was the most popular recipe in my book. And it's just really good. There's quite a few ingredients, but you just kind of, after this, you just dump everything in the bowl. It's really easy. So we'll give this about another 4.5 minutes, and we'll start to put it all together. So after about 5 minutes, it's going to look like this, nice and browned, and that's what you want. We'll turn this off, and we're going to set this aside to cool while we put all the other ingredients together. And pretty much everything gets dumped into a bowl at this point, except the meat. That's going to go in last. So here's my recipe. All right, it's a half cup of quick oats into a big bowl. It's a 1/3 cup of milk. I like to put the milk in second to kind of soak into the oats a little bit. 1/3 cup of milk. And over here we have a 1/4 cup each of finely chopped carrot. I kind of shred the carrot and then chop it up a little bit. So it's the 1/4 cup of chopped carrot, a 1/4 cup of fresh parsley, and these really make such a difference. It's a 1/4 cup of green pepper and a 1/4 cup of red pepper. The red pepper is sweet, the green pepper is tart. It makes a great combination. Okay, we're also going to add a half cup of ketchup right here. That goes in. Half cup of ketchup, 1 egg, a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, which I've pre-measured already, a half teaspoon of salt, some fresh pepper, and this is the only way to do pepper. Okay? And then we're going to mix this up. See these colors? This, first of all, the oats, instead of bread or whatever, the oats add fiber and healthy fiber to this meatloaf, and a great texture. The peppers add antioxidants, the green and red peppers. Onions and garlic are very healthy, so there's really a lot of great health benefits to this. Okay, that's all stirred up. Now all we're going to do is put in the cooled onions and the beef. So the onions go in, onions and garlic and thyme. And this is going to, I think I better put on some gloves for this. It's 1.5 pounds of ground beef. And by the way, I've done this with ground bison, buffalo, which is very lean and no hormones or anything. It's really good. You can't even tell the difference. But this is 1.5 pounds of the leanest ground beef I get. This one I think has maybe 9% fat. Okay, so that goes in. And now I'm going to switch to my gloves, and we're going to mix this all up. Now, you want to get it mixed, but not over-mix it. So kind of fold from underneath and just stir it enough so it's all incorporated, but don't overdo it, because then it won't be quite as soft after it's done. This just takes, maybe 15 or 20 turns. Okay, that's it. Now it's time to put it onto that foil-lined baking sheet that we did, which is right here. And we're going to shape it into a loaf. I just kind of dump it on there. And shape it into about a 5 by 9 inch loaf. And there's a reason why I'm using the foil-lined sheet and not a loaf pan. You'll see when this is done, the fat is going to drain away from this loaf, making it very, very lean. Because when you use a loaf pan, the fat stays in the meat. And that's the fat that you don't want. There's a little olive oil in there. There's lots of flavor. You don't need any of that saturated fat to make this really, really delicious. So I think that's it. Try to make it about even. Now, this is going to go into the preheated 350-degree oven. And the safest way to cook it is to know that it's 160 degrees inside. So what I do is I put a thermometer in. This is one of those instant read thermometers. You can test it later on when it's done, but I have one that will continue to read. So I put it in the center of the meat, like that, and then I put it in my oven. And this end stays out to tie on to the, I'll show you in a second. So this goes into the oven for 1 hour at 350. And then I have this thermometer that I plug this into, which I don't know if you can see, and then that'll tell me when it reaches the temperature. But again, you can test this with, an hour is pretty much it anyway, but you can test it with an instant read thermometer. And after an hour, wait till you see how beautiful this, all browned on the outside. It's fantastic. 1 hour. Okay, the thermometer says it's 160 degrees, and it's all done, and it's absolutely beautiful. Look at this. Here, let me pull out the thermometer here. Okay, look at this. Awesome. See, look at that. See that fat that's drained away? That's all that saturated fat that causes heart disease. You don't need that. So the fat, that's why you do it on the sheet with the foil like that. It's browned on all sides. The end cut is the best part, but you do have to let it rest for 10 minutes before you eat it. So, you have to just be patient. But when you try it, if you don't think this is the best meatloaf you have ever had, maybe you should take your meatloaf and